Good morning and welcome to another Wine Steward video. Thank you for watching. Normally I have a bottle in front of you indicating what I'm supposed to be telling you about, but I've just sold the last bottle of Torbreck, so I can't have that up here to show you. But just know that next week is our Torbreck event, and most of you are saying, who, what? Torbreck is an Australian producer that we actually advocate. We really like this brand. It is probably the most wine stewarded brand over our 25 years here, 26 years actually, and we're bringing it back. I think a lot of you haven't heard of it because we haven't had the chance to put it in front of you as a sit-down tasting event in quite a long time. What we really want, besides the very good and highly rated wines of Torbreck poured for you, is somebody representing them with an Australian accent. I know that sounds silly, but there's something about the way those cool people talk, right? So hearing that and tasting the great wines of Torbreck at the same time is a rare pleasure that will in fact take place next Wednesday night, and we have plenty of seats available. So go to thewinesteward.com to sign up for this. I promise you a delicious evening. And besides the good wines of Torbreck, of which I think we're pouring at least 9, there will be a good 2 or 3 wines from Escarpment. Who is that? Another producer you've never heard of, perhaps, but a very valid one from Martinborough in New Zealand. So the people who own Torbreck these days have purchased more recently Escarpment. And so what we're going to really enjoy is the juxtaposition of nice ripe, not overripe, but very fruit-forward, beautiful Rhone-style wines from Torbreck alongside 2 or 3, I think 3 wines that are more evasive and pristine based on location from Escarpment. So a very nice Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and as you would expect, a glistening Sauvignon Blanc will be poured for you lucky few. Let's get to 28 people. Maybe you have never heard of this brand, but you do trust us to bring you good stuff all the time. That's gonna happen next Wednesday night with Torbreck. Go to thewinesteward.com to play. Let's do something we don't often do. Let's tell you about, very quickly, all of the wines we are showing this week on our mezzanine wine bar menu. We do a different menu every week. How cool. That is to especially appease you regulars who expect difference from us, not sameness. So let's rip through these quickly and tell you, first of all, that the sparkling wine of the week is a Prosecco that we've represented to you in video form, but hadn't shown yet on the wine bar. This is Nani Prosecco. What makes it better than most Prosecco? Longer time on the lees. Sometimes Prosecco is on the lees for mere days in its second fermentation format of tank Charmat process. This spends several weeks becoming a little more enriched with complexity. Nani, it's better Prosecco. You can feel the difference, you can taste the difference. If you're used to drinking that grocery store stuff, you gotta try Nani. Yes, you have to buy up a couple bucks for something better, but you who will do that will appreciate this. Sparkling wine of the week, Nani. Let's now tell you about the white wines very quickly, I promise that. Here is, I think, distinctiveness in every wine we are showing on that white flight. Distinctive here in that we don't often show you Pecorino. Pecorino's the name of the grape, named after the little animals that like to eat the grapes. Pecora, that's a sheep. Pecorino usually comes from somewhere on the Adriatic coast. This comes from the Marche, and it's 100% Pecorino. And it's refreshing and zingy. It's not overly complex, but the distinctive thing about this, you could say, is it comes in a 1-liter bottle. You get an extra glass of wine from this bottle. Let's now take you to something much from closer to home, but it's a one of a kind. I don't know who else in the whole world makes a white wine out of the red grape Cabernet Franc, but our friends Stephen Kent Winery do it, and it's beautiful wine. It's soft and round, and also a little evasive in complexity, perhaps, but I think things catch up with you if you just smell it often enough. Perhaps commit to a whole glass of this wine to know it fully, okay? Cabernet Franc, Livermore Valley, Cresta Blanca Vineyard, Cabernet Franc Blanc. Here's another distinctive wine. Now we're going over the pond again to Rioja for red. Nope. Well, we'll do that if you do the red flight, but Ondarre also makes a Rioja Blanco. And most wine students would identify Rioja Blanco. Blanco is typically made of a grape called Viura. Not in this case. In 1988, a red vine started growing white grapes. That was the mutation of Tempranillo to Tempranillo Blanco. They were able to propagate that particular vine's grapes and create a whole nursery full of these Tempranillo Blanco. And in the meantime, the Rioja wine government approved it for white Rioja. So here is, in fact, Rioja Blanco made of Tempranillo Blanco. Only the second or third one we've ever seen and carried. It's really delicious. You ought to try it. Beyond novelty, it's very good wine. Next up, we are going to just go over one country from Spain to Portugal. This is Alvarinho from northern Portugal. You could call it a Vinho Verde, but it's more site-specifically called Vinho Minho Regional. And so instead of calling itself Alvarinho, as it would just a little north of here and over the river into Spain, this is Alvarinho, A-L-V-A-R-I-N-H-O, Alvarinho, okay? Delicious, vibrant, and this is the typical wine steward roller coaster ride of a white flight, in that before we give you something fleshy at the end, we give you zing. So Alvarinho is very refreshing and good. You should get into that wine. This, by the way, I should name it because it's new for us. It's called Nortico, okay? Bang. Finally, an old friend of ours is back. Pichot Vouvray, one of my favorite label designs and also one of my favorite wines. It's made of what I call the best grape in the world. I just say that in a tongue-in-cheeky way to invite conversation about the grape Chenin Blanc. Chenin Blanc happens here, 100%. And this is Pichot Vouvray. Ever so slightly sweet. There's just a little bit of RS to it, but that's offset by very nice acids, and it's just a nummy-num wine. It's so good. You gotta have this at the end of your flight. All right, Pichot Vouvray. Let's tell you about two wines by the glass that we're doing. In other words, between these flights on the wine bar, you see positioned two bottles that can only be purchased by the glass. We want you to fully know these wines. Instead of the roller coaster ride of a tasting flight, you get to immerse into either a glass of Christum Pinot Noir from the Willamette Valley of Oregon, or from closer to home, Baby Blue. This is a Cabernet-based wine. It could be Cabernet, named Cabernet because it uses, I think, 77% Cab, but they'd rather call it Baby Blue red wine because the cepage or the grape recipe changes every year. It includes, I think, all four of the other main Bordeaux grapes, and might even have a tiny bit of Syrah added. It often does. So Oregon and Alexander Valley. Sonoma County it says, but we know they're sourcing most of it from the Alexander Valley. Red flight, fun roller coaster ride again. We are going to take you to, let's see, Italy and Spain this time. So let's start in Italy and head back to the east coast, the Adriatic coast of Italy, for a Montepulciano d'Abruzzo. That means it's the Montepulciano grape from the sub-region of Italy, or the region called Abruzzo, right there on the Adriatic. And it is dark and fun, fairly simple, but I think Cab people will understand and appreciate it because instead of like a Sangiovese, which really has a strong message of acidity, Montepulciano tells you its message with tannins attached. And I think the California wine drinker, because of Cab drinking, understands tannins better than acids. It's just I propose that as a consumer reality. Montepulciano, the grape from Abruzzo, is the first wine coming from Italy. And now we'll jump over to Spain for Pisares. This is from Coster del Priorat. That's the name of the winery. And Pisares is their entry-level red wine made of the classic Priorat grapes. What are they? Class. Garnacha, I think it's about 60% of that, and then 40% Carignan, known there as Carignana. And it's a very affable Priorat. It's not grouchy like some can be. I think it's pretty damn delicious. Next up, we'll stay in Spain, and as promised, we will revisit Ondarre. That producer of that interesting Tempranillo Blanco also makes a classy Rioja Tinto, and this is going to use Tempranillo plus Garnacha, and it's really elegant. I would have a whole glass of this to fully know it. It is a really beautiful, just right, not over the top, not underweight either. This one's called Premier from Ondarre. It's a very nice Rioja Tinto. That means red in Spanish wine speak. All right, let's go to Italy. Argentière Makes it sound like it's going to be from Argentina, but no, it's Argentiera from, it's Poggio ai Ginepri. I think that means junipers, I'm not sure. Anyway, this is a Super Tuscan. You would think this comes last because it's the darkest wine of the batch. It is Cabernet plus Merlot, and I think it uses other Bordeaux varieties as well. It's delicious. It plays to the, it's inspired by the great wines like Sassicaia and Ornellaia, which cost a hell of a lot more. Here you get Super Tuscan goodness for a lower price. The world-class wine recently received this wine. We sold out, we got some more, we sold out, we have some more. So this is a very nice wine for it, whether or not you're the cab drinker or the Italian wine drinker or both, you will both be pleased with this wine. Now we're going to end up a little ironically, and I wondered if this would work, and it does. At least in my mouth it did, and so I'm telling you that it works, okay? This comes from a producer called Pegaso. Setta, which means Z, is actually the name of an old Spanish sports car brand, but it is also the nickname of this wine that is 100% Garnacha, grown at about 3,000 feet in granite and slate. And it's a lot lighter than the wine you've just had if you're doing this tasting flight, but if you smell it and you taste it and feel it especially, you will understand that this belongs at the end. It's perhaps the most profound wine, even though it doesn't look that way in your glass. But as soon as you start sniffing and sipping, you will understand that this 100% Garnacha grown at elevation from a place where there's very little actual soil. This is all about the granite here, granite and slate. Try Setta Garnacha at the end of your flight. Thank you for your interest. Don't forget that Torbreck event coming up. Don't forget we also sell fantastic spirits downstairs and cheese and all kinds of goodies. So come use us every way you'd like. And see you at the wine bar. Thank you.